Welcome to the Military Wire with Mike Schindler. This is the podcast where we interview America's most elite men and women who have served this country. We share their stories of overcoming, their proven lessons in leadership, and their journey to finding mission and purpose. And today's guest changed the world. And before I get into who today's guest is, I want to put a shout out to the segment's sponsor, Honest Talk International and Circle for Parents. Both these organizations have a vetted network of experts that are standing by to help our listeners navigate issues related to nutrition, fitness, parenting, relationships, intimacy. I encourage you to visit their site, honestbirthtalk.com and circleforparents.com. And Circle for Parents is circle4parents.com. Our guest today, Glen Eberle, is an Olympian, a former military pilot, and founder and the namesake of Boise-based Eberlestock, a company that designs, manufactures, and sells a range of sporting gears for hunters and outdoor enthusiasts. Glen, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks a lot. I appreciate your having me, Mike, and add to that list for military, tactical operators, and police.
Is that right?
So, yeah, we're well established on both sides of the fence, and that's part of the interesting. We have quite a story.
I'm excited to unpack this story. This is going to be so cool. I mean, your story, when I was looking at your bio, no kidding, I started reading this thing, and I got this thing against, pilots, because I'm a Navy guy.
I get that. I totally. I got to think against Navy guys, so it's nothing personal.
That's good. So we're going to get along great. It's going to be awesome. But I saw a tag in a piece, and this was pretty recent, featuring you and your company, that stated, "You'd never know it at first glance, but Idaho resident Glen Everly changed the world."
Yeah, and you spoke that earlier in the intro, and I want to make it clear that I did not feed you that line. It's not my.
You didn't. No, you didn't.
It's truly not.
No, this was an independent third-party source.
No. In fact, I didn't even know that was said, but in a way, it's true, and I've done it a couple times in a couple neat ways. When I say I didn't feed you the line, the truth is, I've also learned humility. I've failed, and I'm not a perfect human being, and yet I'm proof that an imperfect human being can make a difference, and I've had a blast doing it, and really, I would rather. I'm one of those people who can say I'm really comfortable with being me. I'm really glad that I am me, and I'm really glad that I'm doing what I'm doing. I feel like I'm definitely feeling God's purpose for me on this world. So
that is so cool.
Yeah.
So is that part of your DNA? How did you find you? Because one of the things we deal with transitioning service members and their families is that lack of, or really a lack of mission and purpose.
Yep.
And that drives right to the core that you're speaking, is finding you. So how did you find you?
So great question, and it's interesting because one of the weird things about me is I've done a lot. I mean, I have chapters of my life that any one of which most people would aspire to and feel really lucky to have done it, and I've got a ton of them. And so that meaning I've done a lot of things. I've been like in the forefront of a lot of really cool arenas, and I really feel blessed and fortunate to have done so. And I don't feel special more so than anybody else. I'm just a regular guy. I mean, I sucked at baseball as a kid. I still can't throw a ball. So there's all kinds of things that I'm not good at.
Yeah.
And I recognize that. But that's okay. I also, have at times been in a place where I was one of the best and expected to, go on and do something magical, and it didn't happen. And that fall from the height I've felt. So the best example of that is one of these chapters of life. I grew up skiing. I grew up as a young boy in Colorado, and then my family moved to Idaho, little town in the middle of nowhere, when I was 12 years old, and there, it snowed an awful lot in the wintertime. There was a really cool ski area, two of them, real nearby. And every day after school, we'd ski, either alpine, running gates, or ski jumping, or cross-country skiing. So we did it all. And I was one of those awkward kids with scrawny legs, and had to wasn't the most popular kid in school because I didn't play football and couldn't play basketball. But I could ski. I wasn't great at alpine skiing because I didn't have the strength as a youth. Later on, actually, it's really funny. I went on to become an Olympic biathlete, the sport where you ski and shoot.
Yeah.
Did all kinds of cool stuff. But in the course of that, I was on the military ski team, and I don't know if you remember the 88 Olympics, I think. There was an Italian guy that was really a big deal. It was Alberto Tomba La Bamba was the guy's nickname. And so I find myself in an alpine ski race in Germany on the U.S. Military ski team, going out the gate behind Tomba La Bamba, because he's there racing for the Italians in the giant slalom, and I'm there racing for the Americans. And he kicked my ass, I'm sorry, I hope I can say that.
Yeah, no, wait, you'll let us slide, absolutely.
but the truth is, it was just cool to be there, and I was doing it in, there's this weird, segment of this European winter sports thing where they combine biathlon, skiing and shooting, and give it a point score and combine it with a giant slalom race to kind of prove who's a great all-around skier. Yeah. So I beat the Americans on the U.S. military team at giant slalom when I had muscles. So later in life, I could actually alpine ski pretty well too, is the whole point of that. But the whole finding yourself thing goes back to a chapter in life where I was one of the best athletes on the U.S. biathlon team during the 80s.
Is that right?
Yeah, so for 7 years during the 80s, I was on the U.S. biathlon team where, skiing and shooting was my thing, and I was really good at the shooting part and really efficient at the skiing part, which are two nice combinations to have in that sport. So I was really good at it. Went to the 84 Olympics, did well for Americans who were, running against cheating Russians and East Germans at the time. They all had the state-sponsored doping programs, and they were pretty hard to beat. So we felt lucky just to be in the, to be able to give them a run for their money, even if we didn't win a medal. And I said this the other day, but the truth is, I'd a lot rather be me, fighting my way in the middle of the pack honorably, than one of those guys who was cheating to get on the podium and ultimately, has the shame of that, and perhaps the removal of the medals that were, once the doping programs were revealed, that happened to a bunch of guys.
Which was a big issue back then.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So anyway, I went down that little path because one of the things that happened was I was one of the top guns on the U.S. team, right? So 84 Olympics, all the world championships for 7 years. The 88 Olympics, I was going to go there, and I was right at that point where we had some really cool tools in our pockets, which is another part of my story. But I was going for a medal in the 88 Olympics. I was at that level where I thought I could do that.
And this was through the military ski team, is that right?
Well, I was at the time I joined the military. That's another part of how I got there. But yeah, I was both in the military and on the U.S. biathlon team, basically at the time. So, but the point is, I didn't make the 88 team. I was one of the top guns. My mind was on Calgary. I was going to go there and I was going to win, and I didn't even make the darn team. And it was just this confluence of all kinds of bad luck, And I'm a lucky guy. So when everything lines up against me, it's like there's a message here, and it's just funny. I look back at it now. I'm like, I'm glad I didn't get. I'm glad I had that God's hand stop me, because that's really what it felt like. It was like there's just no way that all the things that happened that made the hair's breadth of difference between me being on that team and not. There's no way that all those things should have happened. So the fact that they did told me I wasn't meant to go. And the reason why is because that was one of the points where I was taught humility. I was taught that you do not have all things under control.
So when you went through that, though, Glen, how did you handle it? Because you're talking about trial,
so
right?
Here's
and you make it sound like, not a big deal.
Yeah, no, but here's the cool thing is that Olympic trials were 4 races, and so in any one of them, I was a great shooter, and I had all these like split bullets where half the bullet goes through the hole to knock the target down, but half doesn't, and a micron's difference in any one of those 3 split bullets would have put me on the team. One day, I had crappy skis every day. One day of decent wax on my skis would have put me on the team. So it was that close. Yeah. When I left the last race after putting all my heart into it and feeling like it's now or never, not knowing if I was going to get on or not. So the guy who knocks on my door in the hotel I was staying at was the guy I'd bumped off the 84 team. And his name's John Ruger. He shows up and we cry together. We go through all this, all this misery. But it was what he said was awesome. It was the perfect thing. He goes, you know what? I know exactly what's going to happen because I struggle with this, because I'd always seen myself as an Olympian. I'd always seen myself as a biathlete and being that was who I was. And so I realized that you're not what you do. You're you, and you do things. And so I was like, that's the perfect insight, because that put that in perspective. But it's also it's just a cool way to look at life. And that, and I know for sure, having left the military, and been a fighter pilot, and any fighter pilot who doesn't tell you he's the best one in the world, well,
Right.
But
right.
the truth is, the fighter pilot is a special craft, and good ones know they are, and it was neat to be one, and neat to feel like I could, rule the universe from the air if I needed to. Leaving that was hard, because it was really one of the things where my heart really lay. But I left it willfully about 4 times before I finally realized I shouldn't go back again, because I was being called elsewhere. But when you tie your identity to something, it's difficult to make the change. And the cool thing is to know that we're all going to get old and die. We're all going to be old men someday. We're all going to leave the things we did behind at some point.
That's right.
And so just recognizing that as a healthy part of life, and being able to go, you know what, I did that. That was cool. I'm going to close that chapter of the book and start another one, is the secret.
Man, that's so good. That's so rich. Because you're talking a couple things, like, number one, don't let circumstances define you, right? Whether they're good or bad, for that matter. Identity is a whole nother thing that you brought up, as sometimes we as humans, our identity becomes what we do.
Yeah.
Or we allow it to become what we do. So I am X, and then we shape that identity.
If you're like, I'm still a Navy SEAL, well, no, you're not.
That's right. That's right. That's yesteryear. That's right. So it's such a great point. And so I think identity, finding you, and I want to drive this point home, is finding you has really nothing to do with what you're doing to make money or what you're doing for enjoyment. It might be a part of what's shaping you. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's what I'm getting from what you're saying.
I think for sure. And I'm an introspective person, so I, from a young fellow, was probably putting a lot of thought into this whole meaning of life thing, and I've seen a lot that's taught me what I think the meaning of life is. So I feel lucky in that, but I understand that not everybody has that kind of ability to kind of look at themselves, and I totally get it, especially in high testosterone level stuff, or whatever form of it is. But guys in the military or women that really identify with that and are bond to it, because there's a couple things going on there. It's not just being really good at something, being really good at being a machine gunner or whatever it is that you're doing. It's the identity of being a part of that group, and having that band of brothers, having that camaraderie. Those are the things you walk away from. I mean, honestly, when I left the military, I left at 15 years, so I didn't retire, didn't get a green card to go with me, and we can talk about the reasons why it was just time for me to move on.
Yeah.
But
because some would argue we're so close.
Yeah, I mean, not being able to go back on a base and do what I do, be part of that community, was really hard for me. And I still think about it. And I spent the majority of my time as a guardsman, so I was a part-timer. Well, I was really a full-time guardsman. So, but I wasn't as wedded to the military community as a lot of regular military people are, where you have an entire universe that you live within.
Yeah.
Leaving that's hard. I get that. I totally
entire
get it.
ecosystem.
But, yeah. But at the same time, the lessons of my life have made it really clear that, as I just said earlier, we're all going to die. We're all going to get old if we live that long. And if you do live long enough, you're going to outlive whatever form or purpose you once had. Maybe your purpose then becomes telling stories to your grandkids or whatever it is. But I think some people tend to get trapped in that single major thing that they did, and then those are the guys that get kind of lost. But knowing that the next purpose becomes marriage or raising a family beyond that, or the next profession that you have. I mean, I have guys that work for me that would love to have been in the military, that you can just see that they're just like, oh, that's really what I wanted to do, but they didn't get there for some reason. And I've got some of the coolest guys working for me you could ever have. But I'm like, guys, you got to just be at peace with that. That's not your purpose. This is your purpose right now. You're going to do something here that's magic, and that's going to be that's where you should be.
Yeah. So. That's so cool. So your military experience, you trained as an Olympian.
Yeah.
I mean,
so just let me tell you a quick funny story.
Please.
Because basically, I was a ski racer. I grew up in Idaho. I was good at it, so I was being looked at by a lot of the major ski teams at all the universities around the country, and they were trying to get me to come and go there. But I was into this thing where you carried guns on your back. It was a lot more fun than just cross-country ski racing, and because it was just that dichotomous thing of shooting a rifle when you're all full of physical energy, stopping and doing something completely different was just cool. It's the coolest sport ever. so I wanted to go someplace where I could do that. So I ended up at Dartmouth College in New Hampshire, and just because I could be on their ski team, but they also, I could do biathlon. And while there, I went to the Olympics. I had all this cool stuff going on. In the course of that, I was on the U.S. national team, and the Army or the military has, as I said earlier, these ski teams or other sports teams where they try to get athletes to join the Army or whatever and be on the military team. Yep. So the biathlon program in the military is one which there's sort of some gravity there because of the fact that what it is that intense exercise with rifles in marksmanship is a cool pairing, and so there's it's important to some people in the military. So guys are trying to recruit me to join the Army. They're like, just join the Army Guard. You're doing it anyway. We'll pay you to do it. It's going to be great. And I'm like, I'm not joining the Army. There's no way. Don't even. I'm just not going down that road. And one day a guy goes, the Idaho Air Guard, they fly F4s. You could probably be an F4 pilot, and we'll pay you to ski race. And I was like,
I'm in.
I was like,
I'm sold.
I really don't care about ski racing at this point. If I can go fly one of those things, because
Yeah.
I'd seen them, roaring around, and I thought that was. I mean, I grew up like any kid, building modeled airplanes, and to think that I could actually be the guy inside of a cockpit flying it, I was just like,
Listen, Top Gun sold me. That's how I got into the Navy.
I'm with you. I don't know how old you are, but I was right there too. I was like, I want to do
I was
that.
sitting in that movie theater, 1986. I totally remember it. That next year, I was in. So
I'm with you 100%. 86 is when I was in. It was the same thing. I was like, I want to go do that.
Yeah.
And I had the opportunity to, and so again, I just, anybody looking at me would go, that guy is the luckiest bastard that ever lived. In some ways, I really am, but as we said before we started talking, I feel everybody that lives in America is. I mean, we live in the best country in the world in the history of man, and I know that 100%. So good for us. Meanwhile, if you get to do things like fly fighter planes, and that's even better. It was really cool. But the other thing I know is none of that's accidental. Doors were open for me for whatever reason to put me where I am right now. At the same time, I've worked my tail off. None of this comes for free. Everything I've done, I've worked really hard to make. And that's part of it too.
Well, let's talk about where you're at right now. You run a company, Eberlestock.
Yep.
And I admitted to you before we started the show that I until the script was put in front of me, I had not heard of your company, and I felt somewhat bad.
And you're a Navy SEAL?
And no, I am not. I was
were.
personnel assigned to EOD, but so no, I cannot claim that I was ever a SEAL, nor would I ever want to go up against my SEAL brothers, because they would take me to the cleaners.
SEAL brothers earlier, I was like, holy crap.
Yeah,
but
no.
Anyway, good. I don't care what you did, because we're all in it together.
Yeah.
But the main point being, I would have really been embarrassed had you been a SEAL and not heard of Eberlestock.
Right, no kidding. Well, see, so I've got an out. But when I saw that, you developed that gun stock for SOF, and for the
or pack, rather.
For the pack, I was like, man, this is impressive. So you really started changing the world like in 2003. That's when
before that.
There was
a whole other
right?
thing before that. So I'll just give you the quick bang. So I'm on the U.S. team, poor college kid, barely able to afford oatmeal and spaghetti to feed myself, and working my tail off to win an Olympic medal. We're carrying these 14 or 11.5 pound target rifles around on our back that were heavy, but we thought they had to be heavy to shoot when you're standing there on cross country skis. So the paradigm was, stable, heavy rifle like a normal target rifle, but it sure slowed you down and sucked carrying it when you're tired. And also, they broke very easily. So it wasn't uncommon to take a wreck, and when you did, you'd almost always stand up with your rifle broken in two pieces, broken pistol grip. So I, not having money to buy $400 rifle stocks all the time, decided I'd figure out how to make one. And so I at the college in those days, picture a college kid making guns. You could do that in college in the '85 or in the '80s.
You
right?
could.
So,
I mean, we used to have that little thing that we did around campus where you'd run around with those
team and whatnot. I kept rifles in my dorm room at the time because I was an innocent American kid, the way that it should be. It should still be that way now, honestly. But people screwed that up. But then Dartmouth had a really good workshop in the basement of the Arts Center, and I went down there and made rifle stocks. And then I decided that I could make them better, and I ended up in the course of deciding to make them better, trying to make them stronger by better. I was like, I think I can also make it lighter, and I think I can still shoot a light gun. So picture an 11.5 pound gun transitioning to a 7.5 pound gun.
Wow.
4 pounds gone from the thing.
Yeah.
4 pounds off your back. You can ski so much faster. I mean, literally, we did a sports medicine study with the Nike Sports Medicine Institute sometime in the course of this whole thing, and it was over a minute in a 20-kilometer ski race. Physiologically, you could ski faster because you weren't carrying those 4 pounds. So I'm the guy that did that. So I made the gun lighter. The rest of the world went, holy crap, look what the Americans had, and tried to outlaw it. And this was all happening in '86.
Is that right?
And, yep, big deal. And so I basically set the floor weight for the Olympic biathlon rifle. It ended up where they challenged us. We fought them off. They finally said, okay, what does that thing weigh? And 7.5 pounds to this day is still the minimum weight for an Olympic class biathlon rifle because of what I did. So that was the first. That was the thing.
So
that made
you
me,
really are changing the world. I mean that
really,
changed the world.
It changed the sport, and now the sport's much more dynamic and much more. You know, a lot of things have happened since then. But that was sort of one of the things that injected a lot of speed into the sport, and you know, along with some other things. But but for sure, it was the thing that made me realize that I could impact something in a major way, because I did, and it was pretty cool. So. That in my head, while I was making these biathlon stocks, I had guys going, "Oh, would you make one of those for my hunting rifle? I really want to have this Sitka spruce and carbon fiber thing, you know, so I can go hunting with it." And I was like, "Well, it doesn't look like a hunting rifle to me." And so I took an industrial design course in my last semester in college, and as my final project in that class, I designed some hunting rifle stocks. And I still have a copy of Guns magazine from 1987. On the cover of it, one of the captions is "Gun Stocks of the Future," and inside is an article about Glen Everly and his hunting rifle stocks.
No kidding.
So it's 32 years later. It's not too late.
Yeah, right.
I still have that chapter of this book ready to write.
Yeah.
But the point being that at that time, I realized that biathlon stocks were never going to really, pay the rent.
Yeah.
But there was this whole industry out there that hadn't been injected with performance gear yet. So I decided I was going to do that. I had the North Face with guns in my head in 1987, and then I was, 86 I joined the military. 88 I started flying. By 1990. I didn't give a rip about much besides flying, with afterburners running.
Yeah.
But you couldn't do that all the time because you ran out of gas. So I did, you learn how to be judicious. But but that was my world, and I thrived there. I flew the RF-4 Recce Bird and then the F-4G Wild Weasel, and went to the Middle East in that thing, and did some really cool stuff, and tip of the spear kind of stuff, and it was really neat. And then, we got the word that the Air Force was getting rid of the F-4, and our squadron was transitioning to the A-10, and I tell that to anybody in the I know all these army guys or Marines or whoever they are, and they're all like, "Oh man, that just gets their attention when I tell them I flew the A-10." So I was the first pilot in our squadron to go to flight school for the A-10 out of the F-4, and then to me and two other guys led the squadron into that mission by becoming instructor pilots, and I flew the A-10 into our unit, and so just cool, little like I had this Forrest Gump life, this crazy thing, and, but I'm telling you that because I've done a lot of stuff, but I still go back and go, I've learned humility, and anybody could have done this because I'm no special guy other than whatever lucky doors have opened for me.
Talk to me. I mean, you've done so much, and I want to be sure that people are able to find you and find your company. Yep. But if there was one bit of advice from your rich experience, Glen, what would that be for somebody that's in transition? And when we talk about transition, we talk about the practical, tactical, you're from military life to civilian life, but transition is always happening. I mean, you're a perfect example of this, where you have transitioned from opportunity to career to failure, through failure, pushed through it, come out on top. So life is full of transition, but what's that one bit of advice you would give somebody that's going through transition?
Well, I think it's keep your eyes open. It's like when somebody, so we didn't get to the fact that I own this company now that makes all these really cool backpacks, and we changed that world too. I mean, we changed the way snipers go to war all over the world, period. And lucky me for being able to do that, because that's really meaningful. I had guys coming back from Iraq saying, "Oh man, you're saving lives because the snipers aren't getting shot because they're not carrying scope rifles exposed anymore." And wow,
that's
think
powerful.
Of that. It's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, I was God put me in the right places for the right reasons to get me there. It's pretty neat. But if somebody asks me, what pack should they buy, I'm like, study them, look for the one that hits you most dead center, and that's probably for you. I can't tell you, what you're going to like.
Yeah.
And that's true in life itself. If you keep your eyes open, everybody has that one thing that they see that could be done better, or that they kind of gravitate towards, and that's it, man. That's the door. That's the one you step through.
It's great advice, and I'm gonna extend this interview a little bit if you'll give me a little bit of grace, because what I see often, Glen, is men and women that get trapped by their circumstances. So you say keep your eyes open, and I think you're the perfect teacher for this. This is why I'm asking you this question: is keep your eyes open. But how do I keep my eyes open when I feel like I'm being buried? And I got to believe that through training experiences, through your different experiences, that there were probably moments in your life, and maybe not. Maybe you're just wired and geared differently.
I've been buried many times.
Yeah, but how do you keep your eyes open when you're like, man, I'm over my head?
I think a lot of things just come down to attitude. I mean, you've got to decide that you're on this earth for a purpose, and then that's got to lead you to the desire to be happy. And then I'll tell you this, the most important thing I've learned in my life is that there's something good in everything. All the crap that happens to you, the worst moments, teach you something. And that is the good. You come out of that with good. So when you're down and feeling buried and like nothing's good's going to ever happen to me again, I felt that a ton of times in my life. But knowing that too has a purpose and is going to end, gives you hope. And hope is the thing that gets you out of that hole.
Right.
But even the suck, teaches you something, makes you feel good. When looking back at it later on, you're like, if you're living the right life, which we all hope to do, which is the whole point of this, the ability to look back and realize that that moment where you really thought it was never going to get better did, and that it really taught you something. And that's, I think, in the moment, knowing that that's where it's going to end and you're going to be okay and move on from it. When that door does open, you recognize it. That's the thing, right?
That's that mantra. This too shall pass, right?
Well, for sure. I mean,
yeah. And I don't know how many times I would be down there just picturing someplace calm as I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get through an issue. So this is good. How do people find you? How do they?
Sure.
Eberlestock is. I mean, you do so much. You talk about the stuff you're doing for special forces, how you've changed industry. Why should people come visit your company? Let's talk about that.
Well, we have the coolest and the most bandwidth of, I think, any company in this industry. I mean, if you really start looking around, I spoke earlier about the North Face with guns being the vision.
Yep.
We're about there, and we just haven't grown up yet. So we have all the cool tools you could ever imagine. Well, not really. I'm going to make some more. I've got some really cool ideas. I'm just dying to go do. Yeah. So, but we're both a hardware-based company and a nylon-based company, and ultimately you're going to start to see all that. So it's really interesting. It's also really good in that, I see packs that are 14 years old now walking around, and there are hundreds of thousands of Eberlestock packs in the world. My warranty department, lights are out 4.5 days a week, one guy in there half day a week, supporting all that stuff. So the quality's there, the comfort, the function, all these things are there, and then just a whole bunch of cool stuff that people don't even know about, because I've not been good at telling them. Is there. So so we're in Boise, Idaho. Really easy to find. If you're ever in Boise, Idaho, we have a little retail shop where you can come see this stuff. It's cool, but of course, like everybody else, we're on the internet, Eberlestock.com, and I think it's going to be easy to find us. People are going to start who previously didn't know about us are going to see us, because I finally hired the right guys to start telling the world the story and putting it out there, and we're making connections now with people that are just super excited that we're finally talking to them, because they're like, why don't you guys ever talk to me? Well, it's because Glen Everly's in charge and he doesn't look away from what he's doing right now.
Well, it's such a compelling story. You've got such a compelling story, Glen. Your products that you talk about, and when I started hunting around, I'm like, my gosh, it's such a rich. I mean, when I was there, I got lost in it, and I'm not a big hunter or anything like that anymore. I mean, it's good, and I hope people do visit you, and they will visit you.
Oh, for sure.
No question.
Yeah, I feel it's kind of fun in that you mentioned being lost. That's also a factor of the fact that we haven't made it easy for people to make the intersection of how our stuff works and all that. Like, I had modular pack systems figured out 15 years ago, really good ones. That are very practical and that are very efficient. and that allows you to scale a pack up or down based on the needs of the moment. You know, the best idea in the world of backpacking. You know, we have all that stuff there, but I've failed to express the fact that it worked the way it did to people.
Sure.
You know, so
Sure.
I've got some guys now that, you know, and also, as I mentioned, we put this retail shop together where we can start, you know, playing with the products, and I can show people how they work, and then they get excited and show other people. And so, you know, all that's going on right now, and we are getting better at telling the story. It's going to be really fun. There's a really cool set of things coming.
Well, it's such a great story too, and I want to thank you, Glen, for being a guest on the show. I love what you said, which is, number one, keep your eyes open. Number two, what I picked up from this is, don't let your circumstances define you.
Oh, 100%.
And really, identity, don't allow your identity to be shaped by what you're doing for a living. Like, your identity should be more internal than that, and maybe more grounded than that.
Or even, you know, it's not shaped by the fact that you're not doing anything for a living. I mean, if
Sure.
you're in that, like, I don't know what I'm going to do, man, something's going to happen, and it's your thing, you know. And if it's not your thing, you're going to know it, and you're going to move out, back out, and go do something else. I mean, there's been a bunch of things I thought I was going to end up doing that I didn't, and, you know, thank God I'm not a doctor.
Yeah, right. But that's your point. Keep your eyes open, man. Glen, I got to thank you for just being a guest on the show. I appreciate you being here. And
well, Mike, thank you for doing what you're doing. I think it's super cool, and it's neat to give people like me a voice. You know, I am shy. I'm humble. I don't normally do this sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it's also good. It's good for us to realize that there are some Americans out here that. And a whole bunch of us, not just certainly me. I'm just
Sure.
one, but it's fun to be part of it. So thanks.
Yeah, you betcha. Thanks again, folks. Be sure that you visit Eberlestock.com. Check it out, and man, dig into Glen's story. It's such a compelling story. And if you're in life's transition right now, go back and listen to this, because this is rich. There are many rich lessons in what Glen shared and what Glen has been through. And man, don't give up. Oh, keep pressing on. Press forward. Fail forward. And know
Fail
that
forward. I like that.
Yeah,
I love that.
It is fail forward,
love
baby.
that.
Fail forward all day long. And as Glen says, keep your eyes open.
That's cool.
And just know that you too could potentially change the world.